Hey guys, what's up? It's imuRgency and welcome back to my channel. Why do we love to hate on flawed characters, and what does that say about us as flawed individuals? In this essay I will, no, I'm kidding, but I'm not. We're gonna talk about this. But before you do, if you're new to the channel, then make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. We do commentary, show reviews, episode breakdowns of Euphoria, RAP, basically anything TV and pop culture, so make sure you don't miss out. Subscribe. Also, if you enjoy this kind of content, let me know by leaving a like and follow me on my socials at imuRgency. I will say really quick, like if I look like I'm unwell, it's because I very much am. So I'm gonna try not to laugh because right now it kind of hurts. But we must persist. So let's talk about it. Flawed characters. What are they? What are examples? And why do we not like them? So for the sake of this video, when I say flawed characters, I just mean any character that isn't necessarily morally good or bad and sits more so in that gray area that a lot of people seem to be afraid of. A great example of flawed characters does come from, hold your applause, Euphoria, where a lot of characters get a lot of flack because we initially thought that they were necessarily good characters, like people that we can support blindly, when all of a sudden they do some really shady stuff and show some not so amazing traits that are realistic but sort of break that whole fantasy that we have in our heads about them being completely perfect people. And to that I'm kind of just like, why do we do that? Like in the shows that we're watching, are we looking for idealized characters or are we looking for a realistic depiction of things that go on in our lives? And honestly, I can see a explanation for both, in the sense that like I feel like great acting and great television is a mirror to reality and is able to tell us about ourselves in a way without actually making it feel about us, you know? But then I also understand the point of view of like, I'm just trying to watch television, I'm not trying to think about real life. Like real life is hard enough, I don't need the stuff on screen reminding me of that, which is where I feel a lot of the resentment, not so much resentment, but more so heavy critique over these characters, these people, these individuals in pop culture and media, which display themselves as being nuanced, morally complicated individuals. Because it just reminds us that not everything is necessarily black and white. And I feel like it's really important for us to actually talk about that and sort of discuss why that is. Now, this video is inspired by a TikTok from TikToker Cat Stratford Syndrome, and I definitely recommend that you check out their TikTok, but the gist of it is basically revolved around this one quote that Rue says in Euphoria, in which she regrets reducing someone's life into a moment, an ugly moment, and punishing them for it. And sort of how we as society have kind of normalized taking someone's worst moment and defining that as like their true colors and judging them moving forward from that. And as a society, I feel like we definitely do that a lot, both in media, pop culture, and in our real lives. Starting off in media, I feel like we often try and pick one of two sides, whether we're for like this person for like their good actions or this person for their bad actions, or whether we like someone because of this and not like them because of that. Like I'm thinking like the Cassie versus Maddie dilemma, the Davy versus Paxton dilemma in Never Have I Ever, and even like the Jenny versus Georgia dilemma in Jenny and Georgia. Like we constantly pick one character over the other based on who is less bad and like more tolerable, where I feel like making these like black and white judgments kind of just kills like the nuance of like the characters, because I promise you that the writers of these characters are not making these characters black and white. Like I promise you, like the writers of these characters genuinely try to make these characters complex for a reason. So us just being like, I don't know. Cass is giving me bad vibes this episode. It's Team Maddie all the way. Kind of just kills the point of like the nuance and the development that each character receives throughout the entirety of the show. And I feel like this goes both ways in that like we don't just need to see the bad in people, but we also don't need to just see the good. Like it is okay, trust me, it is okay to acknowledge that Maddie is a baddie for one, and is just genuinely minding her own business in season 2, while also acknowledging the fact that she did some pretty heinous stuff in season 1, in addition to constantly using slurs like the R word in season 2 and in season 1, and being able to both like praise her but also kind of look at her under a critical lens to get a more full depiction of like a character, you know? Like we're able to see two things and understand two things at once. Like it doesn't just need to be black and white. Like I don't know how many times I gotta say it. Like I know I keep mentioning Euphoria examples just because like it's the most top of mind as the show is ending this week. If you've seen any videos on my channel, very much into that show. But even when it comes to someone like, I would say Nate, but really you have to do some deep soul searching to see like the good in that man. He's complex and nuanced, don't get me wrong, but I feel like like from Euphoria, two other great examples are Jules and Elliot, just because those characters come with so much, and I feel like now with the way that the second season of the show has gone on, that people are kind of seeing them in a negative light and sort of just like typecasting them as like bad people just because of a few actions that they've taken without taking into account the good and also difficult things that they've had to go through that made them that way. So it's not so much that they're like bad or like evil characters, they're just flawed, you know? And I kind of want to tie this into real life because like if there is such a dilemma with comprehending, accepting, and really appreciating flawed characters in their fullest extent, what does that say about us as flawed individuals? And I feel like that TikTok really does give some great context in the sense that like we kind of struggle with handling our own flaws and just flawed individuals in our own lives. So when I say this, I'm thinking of all of the like self-help tweets, messages on social media of like, if you're not feeling the energy, if your friend does this one thing, then leave, cut them off completely. And I feel like right now we're kind of living in like a cut off culture, and I'm definitely guilty of this. Like I've definitely done some cutting off in my life where you cut off a friend or you distance yourself from a friend off of one thing that they did that maybe wasn't that serious but just really did not reflect your perception of that person. And what I mean by this is like y'all have been friends for a while and they do like this one thing and all of a sudden they're cut. And I just wonder with that, like, why do we do that? Why do we take that as such a personal blow and such a deconstruction of their character? When in reality, think of you as an individual, like there has likely been a time where you have just been going through something and you act a little off. You may say something that you don't entirely mean because of different circumstances that are going on. And that's okay. Like that is okay. Like that is part of being a flawed human being. And we're able to forgive ourselves for that, but why are we not able to extend that same liberty over to someone else like a friend? We just think of things as like either you're a good friend or you're a bad friend, a good person or a bad person, instead of just really acknowledging like people are flawed. We are all flawed. We all have our moments. So like maybe just because like one time you feel like a vibe is off, like maybe you don't need to actually like distance yourself, cut that person out of your life, because like Rue said, why would you reduce someone's entire existence, someone's entire life to like one ugly moment? And that's what it brings me back to the whole thing of like showing your true colors, because I feel like now we kind of use that term kind of loosely. Like I feel like we describe someone's true colors as whenever they express a negative emotion or like an exudingly negative emotion. For example, if you're friends with someone and all of a sudden you get in an argument and the argument gets ugly and your friend of a long time says something especially rude or like references something that they know would directly hurt you. And of course that's an awful thing to do, and I'm not excusing that by any means, because like that is a terrible thing to do. But at the end of the day, would you describe that as their true colors? And traditionally when that happens, people would say like that's them showing their true colors, but that also then implies that like all of the time that you spent together leading up to that, they weren't being their true selves, which also is not entirely true. Because again, bring it back to yourself. When you are hanging out with people and you have a friendship and you have all these experiences with them, are you being fake in those moments? Or you're not bringing your true self to those situations? No, not necessarily. Like typically you're being your true self in those situations. And like the same thing goes for like those moments when you're mad. Like why is it only when negative things happen that we consider that their true colors, instead of understanding that like there is a whole person around these emotions? Like there's reasons why people say different things. And again, not excusing or explaining away like things that are habitual, things that happen all the time. Like for example, genuinely unhealthy family, relationship, or friend situations. Like no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the time you're with Bestie and Bestie popped off at you and you're like, you know what, you're done. You're done, and you cut them off. And this all just comes together because I feel like the depiction of, if you watched Euphoria, there was a scene where Rue, the main character, apologizes to this other character, Ali, who's supposed to be her sponsor, and she says some really nasty things to him. And she asks him for his forgiveness, and he forgives her, even though he really didn't need to. And what she said was very, very, very f***ed up. I just feel like we really got that depiction of forgiveness, and just giving an example of how we can see people and see individuals for who they are as people, as flawed people, and understanding that people are flawed and will make mistakes and will say things and will do things that we might not like, but also understanding and keeping it within ourselves like how much we're willing to like tolerate and willing to put up with and willing to forgive and accept back into our lives. Does that make sense? I just feel like forgiveness is such an important thing, and also something that's not like a given, but is definitely like earned. I feel like in that scene specifically, like that was earned because Rue in that scene really did regret and feel sorry for that and showed that expression like, yes, I'm flawed, I'm still very much a mess, but I don't want this to be a representation of like who I am as a person, like this one moment to be a representation of who I am as a person. And I feel like that is such a great lesson and something that can be incorporated in some of our lives. But I don't know. There's definitely a lot more of this topic in this discussion to be talked about and had. So I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the comments down below. If you would like a part 2 of me going into this more so from like the pop culture lens and like how we talk about flawed people and individuals in like the pop culture space and how that plays into like media, celebrity drama and stuff like that, let me know in the comments as well. But again, if you enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like, and if you're new, hit that subscribe button, turn on post notifications, and follow me on my socials here at imuRgency. Other than that, y'all, thank you so much for watching. I've been imuRgency, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.